Hello everyone, welcome you all back to our YouTube channel Science is Life. In today's video we hope to learn how to use if else in C programming. So let's see how to use if else. You may face situations like you need to have conditional statements in your program. So in such situations it is better to use if else in your program, right? Let's see how to use these things. So today we are going to learn how to use if statement. Then we hope to learn how to use else with if statement. After that, let's learn use how to use if else ladders. Finally, let's learn how to use nested if else, right? Let's see how the if statement is working by using a flowchart, right? So we use if statement when there is a condition, right? If there is a condition, we use if else. Then we put condition. This condition should be in boolean expression, right? It should be a boolean expression, and we check the condition whether the condition is true or false, right? If the condition is true, then we hope to jump inside the structure of the if, right? We hope to execute the codes within the if structure. Then after that we need to execute the codes after in if condition, right? Then after execute if the condition was true, then we need to execute codes within the if structure. After that we are moving outside of the if structure and we need to execute other codes after it, right? And if the condition is false, then we can't jump inside of the structure of the if. So we need to skip the if structure and we need to execute codes after if structure, right? Okay, now let's see how the if code is executing in your program, right? Let's think there is a if structure in your program. Then all the codes before the if structure will be executed, and then the compiler will reach if, right? Then the compiler looks whether the boolean expression or the condition is true or false, right? So this boolean expression may contain variables, values, or anything, but finally this boolean expression should produce a boolean value, right? It should produce true or false, right? That is why we call it as boolean expression, right? So if the condition produce a true, then compiler can go inside this if structure, right? It goes inside the curly brackets, right? Then it executes all of the codes within these brackets, right? Then after executing all of these codes within this structure, it goes outside of the brackets. Then other codes will be executed, right? If it is how if the condition is true, the compiler works, right? And let's see if the condition is false, how will the compiler work? So after executing all the codes before if structure, then compiler will reach if, then it will check whether the condition is true or false. Here we have put 10 is less than 5. We know this is incorrect, so it will produce false, right? So our boolean expression shows false inside if parenthesis, so we can't go inside the structure of this if structure, right? We can't go inside the brackets of this if structure, so these codes will not be executed, right? The codes within this if structure will not be executed, so it will skip this structure and comes to the end of this structure and begins to execute the rest of the codes outside of this if structure. So let's see how the if statement will be working by a practical session, right? So here I have created an integer variable called number. Then I am using printf function to print a message, enter an integer. Then beside this I need to take an input from the user. The program I want to allow the user to input something beside this message, right? So I am using scanf function and I am allowing to have an integer, and I hope to have a value into my variable. What is my variable? Number, right? So by scanf function I hope to assign a value by user into the variable number, right? Then I am using if statement here. After executing all of these statements, compiler will come here, then there is a condition. So my boolean expression contains a variable and a constant, right? So my condition is to check whether the number is less than 10, right? If the number is less than 10, I hope to print the number is less than 10, right? After the if statement, I hope to print the if statement is easy, right? So let's see how this is happening. Here the console screen allowing the user to input an integer, so I am input 5 as my integer. Then we know 5 is less than 10, right? So compiler is going inside the if structure, then it is printing 5 number is less than 10, right? After executing the if condition, there is another statement after it. The if statement is easy, so it is also printed here, right? So let's see if in a case like this I'll put the integer as 15. Then what will happen? The condition becomes false, right? Because 15 is not less than 10, so my condition is false, so it is not going inside the if structure, so it skipped the if structure. So after that it execute the statement after structure, right? So it is only printing the if statement is easy, right? So that is how simple if statement is working. Okay, recently we used if statement only. From now let's learn how to use else along with if statement, right? So we are using if else statement here. So let's see how it is working. So if is working as before, right? So we need to put a condition within the parentheses of if. So we will put boolean expression within the parentheses. Then if the condition is true, then the compiler will go inside the if structure, right? It will execute all the codes within if structure. Then after executing it, it will skip the else part, right? It will not go, if the condition is true, it will not go inside the else part, right? It will skip the else and it will go after the else, right? it will execute the codes after the else structure, right? If the condition is false, then if the if condition is false, then it will not go inside the if structure. It will skip if structure and it will jump into the else structure, right? It will go inside the else structure, and after executing all the codes within else structure, then it will execute the codes after else structure, right? So that is how if else statement is working. Now let's see how if else code is executed within a program, right? So let's assume that we have inserted if else code inside our program, right? So how it will be executed? So the compiler will execute all of the code before this if statement, right? Or the after executing all the codes, then the compiler will reach this if, right? Then it will look whether the boolean expression is true or false, right? Here we have taken an example, 10 is greater than 5. So this is a true, uh, condition, right? This boolean expression produce a true, right? So that means we can jump into the if structure, right? Our if condition is true, then the compiler will jump inside the if structure and execute all the codes within this if structure, right? So after executing all the codes within if structure, it will not go inside the else structure, right? If it is going to the if structure, then it will not go into the else part, right? They are independent from each other. The compiler will go inside if it is true only, right? If it is true, it will go into the if structure. Then after that, it will not execute else part. It will skip the else part, and the compiler will execute all the codes after this else structure, right? That is how uh, compiler will work if the if condition is true, right? Then let's see how the compiler works if the if condition is false. So compiler will execute all the codes before the if condition, then compiler will reach if, then it will check whether the condition is true or false. Here 10 is less than 5 is mentioned here, so we know this is a false, right? This expression will produce a false. So if the if condition is false, do the compiler jump into the if structure? No, it will never go into the if structure. If the if condition is false, then it is jumping into the else structure, right? If this condition is false, then it executes else part, right? Then all it will execute all the codes within else structure. After executing them, it will go outside of the else part, then all the other codes outside of the else will be executed, right? So in here it will print yes and C is easy, right? So here it will print no and C is easy. That are the outputs of these two programs. So let's see a very simple if else statement within a program. So here I have created an integer variable called number, and I am printing enter an integer. Then after that I am using scanf function to allow the user to input a value into this variable, right? So after that I have mentioned if and else. So if the number is less than 10, I hope to print the number is less than 10. Else means if the condition is false, then I hope to print the number that number is greater than 10, right? After that I need to print the if statement is easy, right? So let's run this program. I'll put 3, then 3 is less than 10, right? So if condition is true, then it will jump into the if structure, then it will print 3 number is less than 10. If the condition is true, do it jump into the else part? No, then it will not execute this statement. After that it will execute this statement, then it print the if statement is easy, right? I'll put another value. I'll enter 12, then the if condition is false here, right? The number is not less than 10, so the if is false, then it will jump into the else part, then 12 number is greater than 10, right? After that it will print the if statement is easy, right? So now you know how the if else statements are working. There is another thing you need to know, that if you are using a single statement within if structure, then you don't need to put this curly brackets, right? You can use it without curly brackets. So that means this statement is belong to this if statement, right? So if this condition is true, then it will execute this statement, right? So you can do it also for if else, right? So here, if you are using a single statement, then you don't need to put brackets, right? So this statement is belong to this if structure, this statement is belong to this structure, this statement is belong to this structure, right? So if you are using single statements, then you don't need to use curly brackets. Let's see whether if we are using a single statement, that do we need to use curly brackets, right? Let's remove this, because here I have used a single statement for this if structure, right? So I don't need the curly brackets. So here also I am using a single statement for else part, right? So I am removing this thing, and here you can see the rest of the code, right? So you will be confusing whether these two things will be belong to else. No, it will only belong the first statement only, right? After else, the first statement will be belongs to the else structure. The rest will be not belongs to this else, right? So let's run this program. Let's put greater value, then 16 number is greater than 10, right? Then the if statement is easy. Let's put a less than 10 value. Let's put 5, and you can see number is less than 10, then if statement is easy. So it is working without errors, right? So it is correct. We don't need to use curly brackets. Then let's see how if else statements can be used as a ladder, right? So you know what is a ladder, right? So here we can use a single if statement and any number of else if statements, right? There may be hundreds of else if numbers if you want, right? A single if should be there, then there may be any number of else if, and there may be a else if you want, otherwise there may not be a else. It is depend on your case, right? so you can't, you can use else if condition without else, right? So likewise here also, if you don't want else, then you can't, you can skip else, right? So it is like this. Ladder means we are using any number of else if. Here we are using first if, then you need to put boolean expression within the parenthesis of if condition. Then if you use another else if, that means if this expression is not correct, then it will go into this else if and check whether this expression is correct. And if this expression is producing false, then it will go into this else if, right? Then check the this whether this expression is true. Likewise, it will continue up, up to the last else if you have, right? After the executing last else if it is not correct, then it will go into the else part, right? That is how the if else ladder is working. Here I have used if else like a ladder, right? Because I am using several number of else if statements, so it looks like a ladder, right? So I need to have a integer variable called number. Then I am printing a message, enter marks, right? Then I am allowing the user to input a value into this variable number, right? So then I need to check whether the number is less than 0. If I put a negative mark, then what will be my output? It will be invalid marks, right? Because my number is less than 0. Less than 0 means my number is negative. So if I put a negative number, then I will receive the message invalid marks, right? So if my value is like 35, if my value is less than 40, then I will receive the grade as F, right? I will receive my grade as F. But if it is not less than 40, then it may be greater than 40. Then let's see, it is 45. If it is 45, then this if condition is false, right? Because it is not less than 40. Then it will check the next condition, right? It will check whether it is less than 50. Yes, it is 50. If my number is 45, then it is less than 50, right? So then I will receive grade as E. Likewise, it will continue up to 100, right? If the number is greater than 90 and less than 100, then I will receive grade as A plus, right? Otherwise, if otherwise means all these conditions are not fulfilling, right? Then it may be a number greater than 100, right? The else part will execute if the number is greater than 100. Then again it will print invalid marks, right? So let's see how this program will run. I'll put marks as -6, right? Then it is less than 0, so it prints invalid marks. I'll put value greater than 100. I'll put 120. Then again it will print invalid marks because it is going here, right? Let's put a value 65. Then marks is 65, grade is C. Let's see whether this is correct. 65 means, is it less than 0? No. Then it will not go inside this. Then it will check whether the 65 is less than 40. It is less than 40? No. This condition is also false. Then it can't go inside it. Then it will check the next else if. Whether the 65 is less than 50. Is it less than 50? No. Then this condition is also false. Then it will skip this else if statement. Then it reach the next else if and check the condition. Is the 65 less than 60? No. This if else if statement is also, this else if condition is also false, right? Then we can't go inside of the else if structure. So it will skip this structure, then it will go into this else if condition. It will check whether this condition is true. So is 65 less than 70? Yes, this condition is true, right? So we can jump inside this structure. So it will give us the grade as what? C. So that is how we are receiving grade as C. So I hope you understood how if else ladder is working, right? Finally, we are going to learn to use nested if else, right? What is nested if else? Nested means we are using a statement within we are using if statement within a if, right? It's like this. Here you can see I am using a if statement and else if statement and else, right? This is the main else if else structure, right? And within the if structure I am again using if else if structure, right? So these are nested if else statements, right? Let's see how to use if else nested if else statements practically. So I am going to use several nested if else statements here. Before that I am going to create an integer variable called number. Then I am printing enter marks message. Then I am allowing the user to input an integer value. Then I am going to assign that value into my variable number, right? After that I am going to use several if else statements. So first, if my if condition is check whether the number is greater than 0 or less than 50, right? So if it is greater than 0 or less than 50, I need to print you are failed, right? I need to print the marks, and after that print you are failed. Or if my number is not less than 50, then it means it is greater than 50, right? Or less than 0. Let's assume my number is greater than 50, right? So then this condition will check whether the number is less than 70. If it is less than 70, then I need to print the marks and you are passed, because it is then it is my number is greater than 50 and less than 70, right? Then I need to print you are passed. Or if my marks is not less than 70, that means it is greater than 70, and I need to check this condition whether the number is equal or less than 100. Then my number is greater than 70 and less than or equal 100. Then I need to print you are excellent, right? Or otherwise, that means my number will be greater than 100 or less than 0, right? If it is greater than 100 or less than 0, I need to print the marks is invalid, right? After that I am going to use nested if else. How I am going to use nested if else? So if my number is greater than 0 and less than 50, then I need to check another condition here. So I am using a nested if else within this if structure, right? This is the if structure. Within these brackets I am going to use another if else statement. Here I am going to check whether the number is less than 40, right? So if my number is greater than 0 and less than 50, then it may be less than 40, right? If it is less than 40, I need to print grade as F, right? I need to print grade as if. Else means what? Else means then it may be greater than 40, right? Then if it is not less than 40, then I need to print the grade as E, right? I need to print the grade as E, right? So this is the first nested if else. Then in the next else if part, again I am going to use nested if else, right? So this is my else if structure. Within that I am going to use another if else. So this is also a nested if else. So if the number is less than 70, I need to check whether if the number is less than 60, right? If it is less than 60, then I need to print grade as D, right? Otherwise I need to print grade as C, right? Likewise I am doing another nested if else within this else if part also, right? Let's see how it will work. I will put my marks as 120, then it will print invalid marks, right? It is moving to else part. Then I'll put marks as 45. Then what is going on here? Then it is checking whether it is greater than 0 and less than 50, right? So it is correct. It is greater than 0 and less than 50. So this if condition is true. Then it prints marks 45 and you are failed, right? So this statement is executed. Then within that it is checking this statement. If number is less than 40, is it less than 40? No. Then it is not executing this statement. Then it is going to else part, right? Then it is not less than 40, that means it is greater than 40. Then it is going to print grade as E, right? So that is how we are receiving this output. Let's put another value. Then all these conditions will be skipped because it is not less than 50 or less than 70. It is less than 100, right? So it is less than 100. Then it will print marks is 100 and you are excellent. Then it will check whether the number is less than 80. Is it less than 80? No. Then this will not executed. Then it will check whether it is less than 90. So it is not correct. So it will jump in the else part and print grade A+, right? So that is how it is working. Okay, so I hope you all learn how to use if statements and if else statements and if else if ladders and also nested if else in today's lesson. So I hope you will use these things in your program, and let's see in another video. See you soon. Thank you.